Today we are joined with not Charles, but Xavier himself. And Xavier's got no experience in the gym. He doesn't know what to do. Charlie does enjoy cosplaying, and today he is in cosplaying as Xavier rather than his furry friend. But we don't like to talk about that on the podcast, do we, Charles?
Nope.
Sorry, Xavier. So, Xavier...
Yeah, sorry, I can't. I'm not even in character, gosh. I only answered to Xavier today. And who is Xavier?
Xavier doesn't know anything about the gym. Mm-hmm. He is gym curious, as some might say. And he's got some questions for me. And hopefully I'll be able to debunk them for you guys. So, Xavier, why do you want to get into fitness?
I want to get into fitness because I listened to on a podcast that I should do strength training because when I get older, I don't want to be falling over that much. And I've seen lots of frail old people and I don't want to be like them.
Where have you seen these frail old people? Where have you seen these falling over old people? Do tell me more.
They're coming out of Poundland on Tunbridge High Street.
and you just observe from a distance and just watch them fall, or do you help them out?
Sometimes they fall right in front of me, and that's when the reality really hits me.
And you think, I need to get in the gym.
And that's when I saw an advert on Instagram for Barn Gym.
Xavier, well, look, you're in the right place. So tell me, what do you think you need to do?
Well, I've been told. I've got a list, actually.
Okay.
I've got a list of things I've written down that I've accumulated from online and people in my life that have a lot of authority. And number one is my lower back. My lower back hurts, and they keep saying that I should avoid lower back exercises because my back is weak. Is that true?
So, firstly, you got to ask yourself the question: why is your lower back painful? Now, for most people, pain originates from weakness, and that leads to the overwork of the muscle. It gets tight. So, weakness is never a strength, and strength is always a strength, Xavier. Okay. So if we were to just completely avoid training the lower back and strengthen up everything else, do you think the lower back would get better, or do you think it would get worse?
If I avoided training the lower back, well, I think I'm worried. I'm worried that if I do train it, then it's going to cause me injury.
But if it's coming from a place of weakness, do you think to leave the lower back weak would alleviate the pain?
Well, no. Well, when you say it like that, no. But I'm just worried. I injured my lower back by just carrying I picked up a paving slab from my garden, moving it around, and it wasn't even that heavy. And I look at all of the weights in the gym, and they're so much heavier. And I see people lifting so much weight, and I just don't think that's for them, and that's not for me.
Well, it comes down to a strength issue again. That paving stone in the garden was beyond your capabilities, therefore overwork the muscle. You might have twisted in a certain direction, put too much strain on it, you strain it. Back pain's a bit more complicated because it's right next to the central nervous system. So if you hurt something in your back, everything locks up around it. So a small muscle strain in your back can feel a lot worse than it actually is. Pain's not generally the best indicator for the severity of an injury on your back, because you've got your CNS that runs down your spinal column. So if something tweaks, everything tightens up. You think you're going to die. But in reality, it's just a muscle strain, just like tweaking your hamstring, tweaking your calf. It's a bit more acute then, but it's generalized back pain when you tweak something in your back. So when you approach training in the gym, if someone came to me and they had a weak lower back, before going into like heavy compound lifts where we could perhaps overwhelm the spinal erecti, spinal erectors, which are located on the lower back, you probably want to start off with some isolation exercises to just build not only strength there, but a better neurological connection to it. Because quite a lot of the time when people start training, especially they go from nothing into like a heavy deadlift or a heavy good morning or a kettlebell swing where there's quite a lot of tension there. their technique might not be quite right, but also they're probably not aware of what muscles they're supposed to use. So just building up a little bit of kind of coordination, proprioception with the sets of muscle groups you're supposed to use, and doing some back extensions and just getting a feel for the lower back working is a great start. And then you progress and learn good technique with hinging movements like Romanian deadlifts, good mornings, swings, etc. And you start light and you build up, and the majority of the time, I'd say 9 times out of 10, the back strengthens and pain goes, right? Sometimes very rarely, it's actually maybe a different issue. It could be a disc problem. But even disc problems, I mean, strengthening is always going to help. Like I broke my back when I was 18. I got an MRI on it. I've got a dehydrated disc. I got a slightly slippage of my L4. If I look at it on an MRI, I'm like, right, that's kind of scary. I should probably never lift again. But if I just go off how I feel, I'm fine. What was interesting when I had that scan was it was actually a year on after the injury. So I had the injury, got an x-ray, nothing showed up. Went to join the army, they flagged it, got me to get an MRI. I'd been pain-free for 6 months, back lifting heavy weights again. Had the MRI, they showed up, they say I had spondylordosis or spondylodesis, I can't remember the exact word, dehydrated disc, slight slippage, never knew about it, was moving pain-free, was deadlifting 250 kilos plus, squatting 200 kilos, playing high-level rugby, no pain. So sometimes getting scans on your back is not always the best thing, because when I had the MRI, I said to the guy who did the scan, he was like, so is this concerning? He said, well, you got no pain. Should you be worried? He said, don't get really overweight. Don't be hyper-loaded, like a pregnant woman or a man with a big belly where the hips sway forward. So he said, if you scan anyone's back, there's probably going to be dehydrated discs or slight injuries or deterioration of vertebrae and discs, etc. And sometimes the diagnosis itself will scare people from ever strengthening the back and therefore lead to a more painful back because of the fear of something going even worse with it. So anyway, I mean,
it makes a lot of sense. No, it makes me feel better. It's refreshing, because I've been told my whole life that the lower back should be something to be avoided, but it sounds like that you should train the lower back as you train any other muscle. And also, I've just imagined that I need to go straight into doing what I see people do in terms of like heavy deadlifting.
Yeah.
And I've seen videos, with big red X's saying you shouldn't deadlift heavy. But what I hear is that you're saying that I don't need to do that yet, and I just need to, as I build up anything else, any other muscle or any other kind of like, running a certain distance, I don't need to treat it any different. But I might just be a little bit more attuned to the pain or to being conscious of my lower back. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing if it aches like after a session, like any other muscle would ache.
Yeah, I mean, all muscles, there's always going to be a certain level of pain. And that could be from DOMS, or if the back is in true pain all the time, like working to nowhere above a 5 out of 10 in the session, that's kind of completely fine. You don't really want to exceed that, especially if it's like rehabilitating it. But yeah, you should strengthen it. It's like if a bridge was broken, you wouldn't just leave it and expect itself to get better, right? It's just going to get worse. Magic. Same with your body. You want to fix that, and by fixing it, you strengthen it. Building up good core stability too, but also strengthen the back. Just building a strong core isn't going to strengthen your back. That's where people get too obsessed. I need to strengthen my core to strengthen my back. Like, no, because that's not the root cause of the pain. You want to strengthen your back if you want to get a stronger back and get less back pain. Anyhow, enough said on that.
You just mentioned a word, DOMS.
Yeah.
I've heard of DOMS, and I've heard that with soreness. So first, I'd like you to explain DOMS, and then I've heard that if I'm not sore after a workout, then I haven't tried hard enough. Is that true?
Xavier, when you first start working out, you're going to get very bad DOMS. Okay, it's a new stimulus for your body. So delayed onset muscle soreness. It comes from micro tears when you work out in the gym. And any new training style. So for instance, at the moment, I train rep ranges, really kind of strength, tapping into hypertrophy. But most of my training is strength and power, and then I'm doing some running, right? And that's what my training plan is. I'm not really exceeding much higher than 10 reps in my sessions. And then on my runs, I'm running intervals and up towards 10K. Now, my body has adapted and got used to that. So that's what the expectation is. So I've been training like that for about 3 months on this training block. So my DOMs are now no longer quite as bad because my body has adapted to this new training stimulus. But tomorrow, if I was to go and do a workout where I was doing 20 to 30 reps on everything, still training to near failure, and then I was to go and do sprints and then a really long run that week, what do you think would happen to my body?
You'd be a little bit more sore.
Exactly, because it's a new stimulus and my body's not primed for that sort of exercise. So whenever you change up exercise selection, rep ranges, and change programs up a little bit, the DOMs are going to be exaggerated. It doesn't mean it's a more effective workout. It just means your body isn't adapted to that yet, and it is trying to adapt to that. Some of the problems could be if you're trying to be good at absolutely everything, you're never really going to be a master of anything. So it's an idea, like if you can keep some things on the back burner. Let's say you keep your strength. Maybe you're doing 1 session a week, and you're focusing a bit more on the running. You're doing 4 sessions a week, and maybe you have one like hypertrophy day. But then if you want to put on more muscle mass, you could do more hypertrophy and strength training and dial back the running. So it's all kind of getting a balance of what you truly want to focus on that time, and being aware when you're changing these training methods up that you are going to be more achy in the short term for that first 2 to 3 week period, and then it will build up again.
That's cool. So it's like a transition period for new exercises.
Yeah, and it's usually about a 2 to 3 week period where your body's like, what the hell is going on? This is different, and it gets a little bit more sore.
Because I also find that after I train, then the day after might be okay.
Yeah.
But 2 days after it's like even worse. Am I still, and I get to that day and I'm really sore. Is it something that I should like train through, or should I back off?
So generally with bigger muscle groups, it's slightly more offset, that feeling of muscle soreness. So for instance, legs, it's quite often 2 days after, a bigger set of muscles, slightly delayed response. So they can kind of feel weak and slow the next day and then painful 2 days after. And then the upper body muscles is generally the day after. Now, you do want to feel some form of DOMs, right? But you don't want to feel 10 out of 10. Mm-hmm. Like, it's kind of a guide. You want to be able to tell that you worked out, right? It should be maybe a little bit tight and a little bit tender, but not extreme. And where people go wrong is perhaps like, for instance, leg day, right? They train legs once a week and they obliterate them. and then they start to hate lower body days because they have an association. Well, they train it once a week and they absolutely destroy them. And then they have 2 days, 3 days of really painful walking around on their legs. Well, that's because it's infrequent. You're doing it 1 out of 7 days. If you increase not the frequency of training your legs, and maybe you do it over across 2 sessions and split the leg session in half, it can offset the delayed onset muscle soreness. So then you're training your lower body 2 out of 7 days a week. Your body adapts a little bit more. Some people, it's more of a bro split where that kind of comes into play. I generally find you get better results with my clients where they're training maybe 3 or 4 times a week for more full body splits rather than just doing chest, back, arms, legs. It's not as effective because then you're training each body part once a week rather than 2 or 3 times a week.
That sounds good. So I can, if I train more, but maybe drop the intensity slightly and don't absolutely hammer it, then I'll be a little bit less sore.
Yeah.
And then I can also train, like let's say, if I want to go and run as well, but I'm also told that I need to keep my strength and mobility up, I can still run the next day. Like, do I just take it lighter? Can I still push at the same intensity? Like, is there a risk if I have soreness, is there a risk of making it a lot worse?
So to alleviate delayed onset muscle soreness, like getting blood flow into the muscles is really important. So light exercise, it depends on how bad the DOMs are. If they're like a 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10, some stretching and some light mobility work is great. You can alleviate it, but it can sometimes be short term. You increase the blood flow, the lactate comes out the muscles a little bit. And you can alleviate it maybe for 3 to 6 to 8 hour period from doing that mobility and blood flow stuff. But it's not going to completely eradicate it. It's not like there's a magic formula. You go on a 10-minute walk and you do a stretch routine and then your DOMs are gone. The muscle tissue is still damaged. So you can alleviate it, but if it's really bad, why would you train it more? The muscles are broken down. You're only getting stronger outside of the gym in that recovery process. You're weakening yourself in the gym. That's what you got to think. You're breaking your body down in the gym, and you're getting stronger after the session through the recovery period. So to go and break the muscles down even further, probably counterintuitive, and you're not going to see as good results from that.
Cool. So I can continue, I might be able to do something light, but sometimes it's just the cost of business. It's like my body saying thank you.
Yeah, it is. And you
in a very weird way.
You talk about intensity, but with you, new to the gym, intensity shouldn't really be your focus. You hear a lot of people talking about it on Instagram. Intensity, trends to failure. And no, for a gym newbie, your focus should be more on volume, because it's a new stimulus for your body anyway. Like going to the gym, you haven't done that before. So your body will respond really well to anything. And your focus should be on form and volume, getting your body used to the movement patterns and perhaps accumulating a little bit more volume at a lower intensity, just to kind of get that pattern recognition and awareness of what muscles should be working and engagement. Then as you progress in the gym, intensity becomes probably more of the focus. Volume's still very important, but intensity will naturally increase because you're going to get stronger and you're going to be able to lift heavier. So your body will be able to kind of take on higher loads.
That sounds good. Okay, so next one that I've seen is the equipment in the gym. There is, when people are lifting heavier weights, there are straps that they use. Mm-hmm. And I've seen videos, people saying that you shouldn't use straps when you lift because you need to develop your grip strength. Is that true?
What's a bigger muscle? Your forearms or your lats and your traps?
Probably the lats and the traps.
Uh-huh. So are they stronger, do you think?
I'd hope so.
Uh-huh. So with grip, your forearm muscles, your extensors and flexors, if they give out first because they're weaker, do you think it's going to be as beneficial for the back muscles?
Well, no, because I'm limited by how much I can hold onto the bar by my forearms and my grip, and not because I feel it. I'd feel it loads in my forearms the next day, but I might not feel it in my back.
Exactly. So that's where straps can be helpful. Mm-hmm. So straps should be a tool to get more reps out. And if you don't use straps, you're kind of limiting your own potential by not being able to get as many reps on, rows, deadlifts, etc. Anything kind of grip related. Now, for things like bicep curls, not as important because we're isolating a smaller muscle. I've seen people use wraps on pull-ups, but to be honest, most people's backs are failing before their forearms are on pull-ups because it's quite a heavy lift and progressing it takes a little while. Mm-hmm. So your grip will generally increase with your back strength from pull-ups. But for bent over rows and single arm rows is a really good tool, and deadlifts as well.
Okay, so I guess like with when I'm warming up, I should maybe, because I still want to make sure that my grip is strong. I've had that grip strength is a good determinant of kind of longevity and overall health. Do I need to do any specific grip training, or could I just use the warm-up sets to, and to benefit the grip?
So firstly, you've got to look at why is grip strength a good determiner of health and longevity? Because generally, someone could have really strong forearms, but a really weak body, okay? So it's actually the kind of causation to lead to strong grip strength. So if you have strong grip strength, you're generally lifting heavy things frequently, right? So it's that association. You could get, a 90-year-old just to sit there doing forearm strengthening work and nothing else, but he's got strong grip strength, but the rest of his body's weak. So it doesn't necessarily like define health, but it's kind of grip strength. People with strong grip strength are generally training in the gym, active people, moving heavy things, leading to stronger bodies. So kind of back to that. Warm-up sets, don't use wraps. But when you get to your working sets, where your grip is going to be the limitation, then it's a good idea to use straps, right?
Mm-hmm. I like that.
That's
good. And then on a similar note, I've seen using a belt as well. Wearing a belt when you're doing heavy lifts, is that cheating?
So let me.
What does a belt do? Well, I don't even know what a belt does.
Okay, a belt. 1 second, Xavier. I'm going to just grab my weightlifting belt from over here. Benjamin, if you could just... no, that one just behind it.
God, sure is handy to be filming this in a gym.
Oh, here we go. So, now, if I ask you to flex your chest now, can you do it for me? Somewhat.
Push it out or squeeze it?
We'll see. Already, you're a little bit unaware of how to flex it, right? But then, if I got you to push against a wall, you could have some feedback that chest is flexing. And that is exactly what a weightlifting belt does. So when I kind of put a weightlifting belt on, it's not the belt itself that is supporting my back. It's more so it's giving feedback to my core that I am engaging it. So rather than, just thinking flex my core now has something to push into. So when you put a weightlifting belt on like this, think breath of air in, and then you blow it into your stomach. So you're not holding that breath in your chest, you're blowing it down into your stomach and pushing your core out against the belt, giving you feedback that the core is engaged. It can engage that much harder. So it's not the belt, it's supporting the back, it's the belt enabling you to engage your core harder to be able to support heavy loads on a back squat, deadlift, row, clean, etc. So it's a really, really helpful tool. Rule of thumb is generally when you're over 75% of your 1 rep max, that's when we start to incorporate the belt. But, it's not just for advanced lifters. People, often think, oh, I only need a belt if I'm lifting really heavy weights. But it's kind of bespoke and personalised to you. What is heavy for, Jenny, who's 72, who comes to the gym, is very different what's heavy for me, right? So
she's a lot stronger, obviously.
Exactly. She's deadlifting 500 kilos, absolute beast.
Have Thor Jenny.
Yeah. So it's what is heavy for you, okay? And that's why we work on that. Like 1 rep max calculation is quite a nice thing, and percentage-wise. So it's good to learn how to engage your core without a belt, but sometimes learning with a belt is a great way forward. But yeah, building tension in the core really will help support not only your back, but regulate stability through the whole trunk of your body and your hips too.
Cool. Nice. Yeah, I think I've seen people, wear belts, and it looks like they're almost just fastening that whole part of the body in because it's weak. Mm-hmm. And they're kind of using it to get a few extra kilos, but then it sounds similar to the straps, And the kind of the lower back, if your lower back's not super strong, you can help stabilize it and then engage the core more. So then you can again lift more with the legs.
Yeah, because it comes down to stability, right? Like using a belt on a machine wouldn't make much sense, right? Perhaps on like a pendulum squat, I could see the purpose, but yeah, it's not really going to do a lot. But when you're using free weights, it's really important because stability is going to affect your force transfer into the floor and where that force is transferred to. If you're wobbling and the stability is not strong in your trunk, then you're not going to be able to maximize your force output into the barbell, leading to failed reps.
I'm leaking.
Yeah, and it's a really, really good tool.
I saw one of my friends, it was Jenny actually, Jenny or Susanna. She said, "No carbs before marbs."
Yeah.
I've been told carbs are terrible for me.
Well, what carb? What carbs are you thinking about when you're thinking?
I've been told that rice, pasta, bread.
Okay.
Bread is the main thing. You know, you've got to cut out bread, because I did it before. I did it with a weight loss program before, and I cut out all bread, and I lost weight within like a couple of weeks.
So, was it the bread making you fat, or was it the overconsumption of calories making you fat?
Well, I don't know. I wasn't tracking them.
So the thing is with carbohydrates is they're very easy to overeat. Because they're your body's main energy source. When your body gets carbohydrates, it's like, yeah, I want more. Like I'm getting this fast hit of energy, which is great. Like for performance-wise, you want fast hit energy, but it depends on the complexity of the carbohydrate. So we've got simple carbohydrates, which are more sugary, like sugar would be its purest form. And then you've got complex carbohydrates, which are much more fibrous and probably have a higher fiber content. So they slow down that digestion process. So vegetables, fruit, sweet potato, chickpeas, etc. would be on that end of the spectrum. So people would say a healthy carb is perhaps like a rye bread or beans, pulses, chickpeas, vegetables, fruit. Perhaps, well, some people wouldn't believe fruit's, healthy now because they said there's too much sugar in it. But more fibrous, right? They're more complex, they're slower to digest, the release of energy is slower, you don't quite get that hit. Therefore, they are less likely to overconsume. On the other end of the spectrum, you've got sugar, cookies, you've got crisps, sweets, chocolate, all these things which are, not inherently bad, but easy to overconsume, therefore makes them bad because you pile on the pounds because, you open a bag of crisps and you just want to eat the whole lot, or you have a bite of a chocolate bar, you want to finish it off. It's the overconsumption of it which makes it detrimental to your health. Danger in the dosage, right? So eradicating those baked goods, cookies, crisps, reducing the intake of that when you're trying to lose weight is a fantastic idea, because most likely you're going to overconsume it. I mean, you could try and teach yourself good habits and teach discipline around it and think, I'm going to have a square of the chocolate bar. But for most people, it's not going to work right. But complex carbohydrates, like your body runs on glycogen, and carbohydrates are transitioned into glycogen very easily in your body. And that's what explosive energy and majority of your body's energy systems throughout the day. Now, protein can be turned into glycogen as well through a process called glycolysis, I believe. But it's a very slow process, and it's very something called the thermic effect of food, and proteins require about 20 to 30% of the calories consumed in order to digest it. So if you eat 100 calories of a very lean protein like a chicken breast, you are going to be burning 20 to 30 calories digesting it. So then you're only netting 70 calories, and of that 70 calories, maybe about 10 or 20% could be turned into glycogen. So it's a very inefficient energy source. Whereas with carbohydrates, the thermic effect of food, depending on how fibrous it is, so on that complex to simple spectrum, the more complex the carbohydrate, the higher the thermic effect. So it would be about 10%, and then the simpler carbohydrates are around 5% of the calories you consumed are burned. Now, fats, you're a different one. People think fat makes you fat, but fats actually are very easily transferred into energy. It's about 2% thermic effect. So that's kind of interesting. You know, when people say you get meat sweats, that's because the thermic effect of food is really high. And so there's a lot of heat exchange going on when you're digesting it. So carbohydrates, you wouldn't associate fruit, veg, sweet potato, beans, lentils is bad, but they are carbohydrates. So it's just where people look at carbohydrates as bad. Well, you're looking at, you know, the shit ones, which are mass produced and, you know, produced to be overconsumed and be super tasty and highly palatable and easy to overeat. So that in short, I could go on about it for a long time.
But what you're saying is I can still go to marbs.
Yeah.
But I can eat my carbs.
You can eat your carbs, yeah, but it's to lose body fat, we need to be in a caloric deficit. We can work out, so you are, 80 kilos, let's just call it. So we could times that by 20, and Xavier's really good at maths.
1,600.
1,600, sorry, 22 it's more accurately. So 1,600, so 1720, right?
1716.
1716. Go, Xavier. So
I was imagining myself as 60 kilos for a second for that last
that's your very, very rough BMR, basal metabolic rate, okay? It probably a little bit higher than that for you because you have a higher muscle mass percentage. And then activity levels. So we could multiply that by 1.2 to 1.3 for a normal human, okay? Who just walks a little bit, doesn't exercise at all. And that would come out about 1900-ish, right? Mm-hmm. And then you could have someone who works out 3 times a week and is fairly active. Then we multiply that by 1.6, which would be, let's just call it 1,700 round number.
Yeah, you're getting around, was it probably about 2,600?
Exactly. Okay, so 2,600 caloric maintenance. And then if you were an athlete, you might want to multiply that by 2 to 2.5, depending on how much exercise you're doing. Anyway, there's calorie calculators on the internet that will do that for you. You just punch in how active you are, your weight, your height, your age, and it will spit out a number. But more or less, that's kind of how you work it out. So being in a caloric deficit will get you to be your desired weight. 500 calorie deficit is generally favorable for most people. Women, we can generally go to a lower. Women generally feel the effects of a calorie deficit more than a man will. It affects their hormones a little bit more, so they can get a bit more mood swings, worse hunger cravings than a man, making calorie deficits a little bit more unpleasant for women. So men can go a bit more aggressive with weight loss. You can kind of creep up to a 750 calorie deficit with a man, and they might not feel the effects of a deficit as much, whereas a woman generally don't want to go much over 500, otherwise there can be probably more issues which affect their kind of hormones, hunger, mood, etc. So you want to find that amount where you still feel good, you're not hungry all the time, you're not low on energy, but you're losing weight. And that can be anywhere between a 300 to kind of 700 calorie deficit. And depending on the individual, everyone kind of reacts differently. And then as long as you maintain that deficit and keep your protein intake high, 1.5 grams of protein per kilo of body weight is a pretty good rule of thumb. Unless you're training an awful lot more, you could creep up to 2 grams a day. But, you know, around that 1.5 is a good one to aim for. So you are 80 kilos, so you know 120 grams of protein. If you're training a lot, maybe up to like 140, 150 grams will be about right.
Nice. And how long, you know, I've got a holiday in 6 weeks' time.
Uh-huh.
Is that enough for, you know, you say it's quite aggressive to cut. Is it sustainable? Like, am I going to be able to do it in 6
How much
weeks?
How much weight do you want to lose?
I want to get down to 74 kilos.
So you want to lose a kilo a week.
Yeah.
Until then. Well, firstly, and have you been dieting already for the past few weeks?
No.
So we chuck you into a dieting phase. First thing that will happen is your water and glycogen stores will come down. First week, you'll lose a couple kilos, which is inspiring, right? Won't be fat, a little bit of fat. But so we'd make that drop from 80 to 78 fairly quickly. Then we've really got to lose a kilo, well, just under a kilo of body fat per week, which would be about a 750 calorie deficit. 3,500 calories and a pound of fat. Okay, so a 500 calorie deficit per day will be a pound of fat per week, which is about 0.453 kilos. Okay, so around that. So we need to. So if you then wanted to lose, a further 4 kilos, it's possible. But yeah, you would want to get into a 750 calorie deficit per day. It would be aggressive. You would feel the side effects of the deficit, probably. You'd feel hungry. You might feel a little bit tired, a bit flat on energy in between in work and your workouts. But it's possible,
It doesn't sound like the best idea, though. If I thought about this a couple of months ago, you were talking about the DOMs, talking about soreness of training. Like if I'm getting into training, I'm also wanting to lose weight. I'm focusing on my nutrition. It's a lot to do. And it sounds that it might be a bit better to lengthen out that period of time.
Oh, for sure.
Like give myself a bit of time to build into the training, to not push it too much. Like being sore and then also being hungry and then having to do all the stuff in the day. It sounds like
look, is it possible? Yes. Are you going to enjoy it? No. If you don't enjoy it, will you do it again? No. So you want to find a sustainable way to do it. So a much better way of looking at it is if you came to me like that, I'd be like, well, look, you should have started probably about 2 months ago and made it a much easier process. Your primary focus should just basically be on learning how to move weights in the gym, learning about nutrition, diet a little bit better, start to track your food, understand calories, understand macronutrients, understand micronutrients, building up that education prior the holiday. And then maybe the next holiday you can go on, you can do a proper training plan leading up to it to look good for that. But you don't know anything now. You're not going to get life-changing results in 6 weeks. 6 kilos in 6 weeks is a push, but it's possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I clearly don't know anything now because everything that I've said told me that I'm wrong. Okay, next one is women should only use light weights and not heavy weights. I've seen that, toning, I don't want to get bulky. Mm-hmm. I've heard that light weights is the way to go.
Okay, so light weights to failure. Firstly, what is a lightweight, right? Because some people come to the gym and they look at a 2.5 kilo weight or a 4 kilo weight and say, oh, that's light. But for someone that might be heavy, right? Yes. So everyone's got that. It's very relative. But light weights done high reps classically means kind of circuit style training, pumping out, or no weights, right? Just body weight stuff. 30 squats, you get a burn, but are you getting any muscle hypertrophy? So women getting told to shy away from heavy weights means they're never really going to see as much muscle growth as they potentially could. Don't get me wrong, it's better than doing nothing, right? And I'm pro exercise. So if that's what a woman wants to do and they want to do light weights, and they just want to go and get a sweat on and do more of a cardio and endurance workout, and they love doing that, no problem. Mm-hmm. But don't complain when you're not getting the toned physique you want, because it's not going to whack on a lot of muscle. The most efficient, effective way of putting on muscle is training to near failure, maybe having 1 to 2 reps in reserve from 20 reps or under. You can get good muscle hypertrophy as long as it's near failure by 20 reps, but that kind of sweet spot is that kind of like 4 to 15 reps. And then it's individual dependent. You might prefer pushing to failure at 12 reps, whereas I like to push towards failure at 4 to 6 reps. Which way's better? I might get a little bit stronger marginally. You might get a little bit bigger marginally, okay? But more or less, the same results will come. to look toned, you want to lose body fat and build muscle, right? That's going to build a toned physique. Just doing high reps in the gym might help you lose body fat, not going to really help you build a lot of muscle. So then sometimes people look skinny fat. They've lost some muscle, they lost some fat, kept the same amount of muscle. Like, I don't look the way I want to look at this desired body weight. What's going on? Mm-hmm. That's where hypertrophy and strength training is more beneficial.
And that building muscle, is that going to make me look bulky?
Well, it's very difficult to gain muscle. It takes a long time. Year 1 and 2, you'll generally put the most amount of muscle on when you start training, because it's new stimulus for your body. And you probably can get away with seeing hypertrophy results from like lighter weight for higher reps in that first year, because it's just new. You've gone from never training before to actually adding some new load to the body and doing it at a somewhat high intensity. But then from that point onwards, it's more difficult to progress. So you kind of have that newbie gains, which you'll be experiencing. And it almost be like being on steroids. If you train it correctly and eat enough protein and have a good diet and you're recovering well and you're taking good rest periods and you're progressively overloading the weights, you will gain a lot of muscle mass in that first year. And then it's like the law of diminishing returns. Incrementally each year, you will see less and less results. Like I would be fucking happy to gain a kilo of muscle mass in a year now, because I've been training for like 12 years. But in year 1 and 2, probably gained about 4 or 5 kilos. Well, 3 or 4 kilos of muscle mass. Do you see what I mean? Half a kilo of muscle mass I'd be happy with, to be honest, Charlie. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Xavier. But it's
Charlie.
Yeah, who is Charlie? So yeah, it's you will see more progress in the short term, but long term it becomes gaining little bits, but you find joy in perhaps strength returns and performance metrics rather than just size. If you remain a natural lifter, you kind of go, okay.
I'm not going to be taking any drugs. I want to stay natural.
Yeah.
But that sounds good. I mean, I can make a lot of improvements if I just expand my time horizons from like 6 weeks to a year or 2 years. But in the same way, I can still make quick, relatively quick results. There might be a little bit of change in the first couple of weeks with the water retention and dropping the scale weight, and then kind of build in and get used to stuff, get used to movements. And then it sounds like, once I get to a year, once I've probably ironed out a lot of my injuries before by getting strong, then it might open the doors for me to then switch to a different type of fitness or a different type of take on a different type of challenge. And then that sounds like a way that when I don't want progress to slow down, but it sounds like that's naturally going to happen as I go along the kind of the year cycle of training. But it means once I get to that, I can then pick something else to then get good at, and then pick something else that good, and keep it fresh.
I think when you're purely focused on just aesthetic results, you can, let's say your genetic limit, right? Lean, let's say 10% body fat, right? So you're really peeled, really lean. Let's say that's like 86 kilos for you, 6 foot, probably about right. That is just a genetic limit. So for you to be 10% body fat and get up to 82 kilos, those last 4 kilos, so that kind of last, 5% of muscle mass, 10% of muscle mass is the hardest to gain. And that's kind of where you make the choice. Do you continue to chase aesthetics and see really slow progress? Or do you find joy and see progress in other things like, could I get good at running now? Or could I just focus on my back squat and get that stronger? Or could I just focus on getting good at rowing or CrossFit or competing in a high rocks? And that's where I find I get my joy, is adapting and seeing what can my body do. Could I do a 100-meter sprint? You know, could I do a marathon? Could I do
sub 50 400 meters?
Yeah, exactly. Like these things are exciting because when you get to the point I have been with training for 12 years, it's like, what can my body do? And that's exciting because you kind of build a robust base of fitness and like conditioning and strength, and you can experiment and branch out, and seeing progress in different elements of fitness is really fun and exciting, and you take on new challenges. But for the meantime, you just want to add some muscle to your body, build a decent base of strength, fitness, and build a body that you're proud to look at in the mirror and you think, okay, yeah, this is cool, and then see what you can do from it from that point on.
That sounds like a good plan.
Yeah.
Is there anything else I should know? You know, I've got these things online which I've kind of learned, and it sounds like a lot of them it's more clickbaity and will just be a little bit fear mongering, saying you should avoid doing this, and you know, people will tell me to have, you know, certain supplements and they can make money off that, when it sounds like, you know, I might just need to fix the basics and the fundamentals. Is there anything else that I should be wary of, like when I first start training, that I haven't mentioned already?
Don't be set on one way. Experiment. Bodies are unique, and finding what works for you is important, and that comes from trial and error. So trialing out different training styles, trialing out different times of eating in the day or different types of food, working out what suits your body well is going to be key for you to see long-term success. And that trial and error period can take a while, and that's the fun of that's the process, right? So one influencer saying this is the best way to get in shape. Like, if you stuck to it, it probably is. Like, you could get in shape doing it, right? But is it the right thing for your body and mind, right? Because a lot of stuff can work for the body, but is it something you can stay consistent with long term? And that's the key formula. It's consistency, but finding a style of training and a style of eating and a style of recovering that you can stick to, not for a year, but for the rest of your life, right? And it will have to adapt and change with time as you get older, probably more so the training rather than the recovering and the eating. Or the eating as well, because, you know, you might not be training as much, you might not need as many carbohydrates, etc. But it's just kind of learning as you go along the process, and that's the fun of it, and figuring it out. That's what you got to find the joy in, rather than just the results itself. As soon as you fall in love with that process of not only getting results, but of learning and trying new things, that is when you're going to stay consistent long term, not just from the results.
Yeah, see, that sounds, it does sound great, but it also sounds quite difficult, and that's going to test my patience a lot. But also because I'm going to have the results as well at the start to keep me going. Like, I've always been used to training for a specific thing, or do this like 6-week shred or 6-week something, but it's just not sustainable. But I think just like expanding the time horizons and allowing things to like compound in a sense. And the more that I stick at it, the more that I'll learn, and then it opens more doors, and I can find, you know, a way that I can do it. Because, you know, if I want to change jobs or, you know, family commitments or anything like that, I want to have something that's consistent in my life. I don't want to have something that is only predicated or dependent on a certain set of like circumstances, because I always find that when I want to do something new, that only has that kind of like motivation and inspiration for it. It only lasts for a certain period of time, and I need something a little bit more sustainable and something a little bit more long term. So it sounds difficult, but it also sounds kind of rewarding, you know.
If it was easy, everyone would do it, you know. And it just depends on the values of where you put health in your life. Because building a strong, fit, healthy body, which doesn't get sick that often, that is energized, that is motivated, is generally positive, you know, you're going to notice you're happier more frequently. when you're keeping healthy, you're going to sleep better. Like all these things, you're like, okay, that sounds pretty cool, but it requires energy and effort in order to get to that point, and it drastically improves your life. Like there's no doubt about it. Like it's very rare you meet someone who trains frequently, eats well, and sleeps well, who's very, very depressed and sad, and because the thing is with health is a part of your life. You if you're fortunate enough, you can have control over. I mean, if you're in the UK, pretty much it can be more difficult with financial constraints, but you know how cheap a pack of rice is and some chicken thighs are and some tuna. You can start with really basic cheap stuff and some veg, like some cheap veg, etc. You can start there and you can work your way up to the premium eggs and steaks, etc.
Oh yes,
but,
from planters.
But you can have control over what you put in your mouth and what you do with your spare time. And if you're being productive with that and seeing progress in that element of your life which you have control over, it's brilliant. Because relationships sometimes don't go as planned. Work, anything can happen. And there's elements of your life that you don't have drastic control over, but your health, you do. Mm-hmm. And as long as you're constantly seeing progress within your health, it's pretty uplifting and happy, because shit can go wrong. Yeah. But at least you still can go on your run or go to the gym or eat that nice breakfast that energizes you for the day, or get to sleep at a good time and stick with your routines. So that element of control over your body and your health sometimes doesn't go to plan. Might get sick, but you can do everything you can in order to not get sick, and not have the injuries from just walking down the high street and rolling your ankle or popping a knee out. Mm-hmm. Building that robust body.
Yeah. All those people falling out of Poundland.
Yeah, I mean, they are at risk. Those Poundland people falling over that scared you.
It did. And that's what brought me here.
Yeah.
Well, Guy, thank you so much. Thank you for answering my questions. Because genuinely, I get so overwhelmed online. There's way too much. There's way too much advice, and I get on a certain, algorithm, and I'm scrolling, and I see that I should be having, eating this much protein a day. I see that HIIT training is sometimes good for me, or I should be going some steady state training, or lifting weights, and I should train when I'm tired, but not when I'm too tired, or I just get so overwhelmed by it. But it's so nice to just have, keep it nice and simple. I guess the last thing is, from now, for me, if I were to pick 2 things to focus on, if I wanted to lose body fat and just be a little bit more energized day to day and get a little bit fitter and stronger, what are the 2 things to keep it really simple that I can actionably do now and go home and do?
As a newbie, tracking your food, building up an awareness of nutrition, macronutrients, micronutrients, calories, so important. I strongly suggest anyone to do that for at least 6 months to a year when they first start out, because it builds an understanding of what are in the foods you're eating. I like to call it food tracking, not calorie tracking, because there's a lot more to food than just calories. Mm-hmm. That, number 1. Number 2 would be follow some form of training plan. Sticking to it, progressively overloading it each week, tracking the weights you use. If you can get those 2 things right to start with, fantastic. And that training plan, how could you ChatGPT could help. You speak to it and say, this is my schedule, these are the results I'm after, this is the level of fitness I'm at, these are the exercises I don't really know how to do, this is what I want to work on. It can give you somewhat a good plan to follow. But again, there are other apps and there's coaches out there if you have the finances to do it. But that can be a good start. And those, if you can get those 2 things right, they're pretty good non-negotiables to follow by. Like, I follow my training plan each week and I track my food. If you're getting that right, then you can stack other things on top of it. Getting to sleep at a certain time, reading a book, educating yourself, hydrating enough, meditating, journaling, etc. Like, there's these other things that can come in, but start with that first if you want to build a healthy body, probably the third most important thing is getting that sleep schedule sorted, because that recovery process needs to be good. But generally that sorts itself when you start a training program and start eating better food. So, that's all I'll say on that.
That's great. Thank you.
All right, Xavier, thanks for joining me today. It's lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you as well.
Do you mind if I just grope you a little bit?
I do mind.
Charlie. Can I measure how thick your leg is?
Yeah, honestly, my leg's getting bigger. Go on.
It is, isn't it?
I know.
Wow.
Isn't it actually?
Yeah, it's getting harder as well. On that note, goodbye, everybody.